But I am interested in Eric's theory. So he explained it to me. We met up in person and he spent hours explaining it to me. And I find it extremely interesting as well. Like super interesting, man.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I have to dive in more into that. It's actually funny because the most popular video on my channel is because of Eric's work. It's on the Hopf Fibration, which is, maybe you're familiar with. I barely even understand it. I made the stinking video and I can barely wrap my head around its actual significance. I do not really understand. He went on Joe Rogan a few years ago and said it was the most important object in the universe, was his claim. And so I went down the rabbit hole of trying to understand it myself and then trying to explain it. And still to this day, I can't really fully grok if it's legitimate, if it actually is this important, or if it's just a mere curiosity. I can't tell.
Yeah, I don't agree that it's the most important.
Yeah. That's, if you asked me, gun to my head, I would say the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't even put it in top 5.
Yeah, me neither.
But I'm sure Eric has his own reasons.
Yeah, I assume so. Yeah. I mean, I just took that too far, perhaps too. In a 3-hour interview with Rogan, you can say a lot of things and kind of be, but it's captured the attentions of a lot of people. So that's kind of interesting. So geometric unity and Bach, got it. So,
can you explain to me how is it more complicated than you have a sphere and you put a local product space of S1 on it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is it more complicated than that?
I agree. I don't know. I don't understand its significance. I can understand generally that it's a mapping from a hypersphere onto what we'd say a traditional sphere. But beyond that, I don't know why it's important. It has applications in a number of different physics situations, but beyond that, I don't know. There really is no other literature I've seen about its importance or significance. So, I just have to trust what Eric says there on it. Yeah, sorry. But if we make just, so we'll continue.
It has an extension. Okay. Sorry.
Please. Yeah, no, if you have more, this would be great. If you have a context on it.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be wonderful.
So there's, I believe, S4. So this may be incomprehensible to most people, but the sphere, this regular sphere, if you take it and you just consider it as a shell hollow, otherwise it's called a ball, technically a ball in physics, or a disk, if you take the circle version. So you have to take it as hollow. That's called S2. And then if you want to go higher dimensional, then you call it S3. And lower dimensional would be S1, and that's the circle. So the circle, S1, becomes the sphere, S2, becomes some higher dimensional version of a sphere, S3, and so on. Then there's S4. And yeah, so you were thinking of the Hopf vibration as taking a higher dimensional sphere, so S3, and then wrapping it around S2. Whereas I think of it as S2, but then it has a local product space of S1, and those are equivalent. So in bundle theory, those are equivalent. You were looking at it in terms of I believe it's called the homotopy. I believe it's called the homotopy. And I was thinking of it in terms of the bundle interpretation. But so the easiest way for me to understand is the bundle interpretation. So it's S2. So S3 goes into S2, which is the hypersphere goes into the regular sphere. But then locally, it looks like the sphere with S1, which is the circle. You can generalize this to S4, so a hypersphere, locally looking like a product of that with S3. So another hypersphere. So that's S7 going to S4, I believe. And that has an important role in physics with what? With the anti-self-dual and self-dual Yang-Mills equations. So that's a mouthful. But that there's a generalization of the Hopf vibration that has application in physics. As for the regular Hopf vibration, I don't know. I don't know much. Yeah.
Well, same here. I know far less than what you just explicated. That was more than I thought about in a long time. But actually, while we're in this sort of domain here, and for folks who are listening aren't familiar with your channel, you do have a background in mathematical phrase, and I'd love to talk about just mathematics broadly and just the field. You've certainly heard this phrase, the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics. Do you have an intuition as to why mathematics is so unreasonably effective?
I oscillate between thinking that it's so trivial that it's obvious why it's so effective, and then also that it's a profound statement. Like I'm oscillating right now into it's a trivial statement. So my present deliberation is it's as foolish. Thinking of the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics is just as foolish as saying, I can't believe screwdrivers work. So we designed screwdrivers to work. We have axioms. We could have chosen any there are several axiom systems that we could have chosen that we don't. And the reason is because it just doesn't have application. One of the reasons why some people may wonder, man, mathematicians are pedantic. They take 200 pages in this book, I believe it's called the Principia Mathematica, to prove 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, so then the question is like, why? Why does it take 200 pages to prove something so obvious? The answer isn't that it takes 200 pages to prove that it's obvious. It does do that. But the answer is that we want to know if the axiomatic system we have that's so abstract is correct. So it better prove 1 + 1 = 2. It takes 200 pages to get from those axioms to 1 + 1 = 2, but we're not trying to prove 1 + 1 = 2. If we had found that it doesn't prove 1 + 1 = 2, that would have invalidated the axiomatic system, and we would have chosen a different one, or keep generating until we come up with one. Luckily, I think Russell and Whitehead came up with that about 100 or so years ago. If we had, there's the physical universe, and then we're trying to model the physical universe, and we use math to model it, but we don't use any math. We just use some parts of math. Wolfram is, by the way, trying to explore the space of all math. It's not like yeah. So it's not like any axiomatic system works. So when people say, well, why is math so effective? You would have abandoned it if it wasn't so effective. It's what's left over that's effective.
That's interesting. So you don't, I think a lot of people, myself included, probably do elevate mathematics to a certain degree, and that it seems, I'd say more fundamental. That's probably too strong a claim, but its usage across domains seems to give it more of a greater weight, let's say. But you don't elevate it. It sounds like you don't particularly elevate math beyond the other disciplines or sciences.
No, because, we could have different logical systems, some that are so trivial. So right now we say there is no law or there is a law of the excluded middle. And then we have other logical systems where we don't have the law of the excluded middle. But we could have had a logical system where it's just T, like there's just one letter, T. And then all you can prove, quote unquote, prove are strings of T. And then we think, well, it's not interesting. But it's math. And so we don't question, well, what's the unreasonableness effective of T theories? Because we don't even consider that. So when we say the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics, we're already considering the subset of math that is effective. So obviously, it's effective.
Right, but I guess when I think about it in comparison to, it's really hard to think about it in comparison to other, I don't want to say languages, other domains, let's say. Something you study in, let's say, biology. It's really difficult to compare between math, right? But something you learn from biology, not necessarily applicable to something you learn in chemistry or physics, or vice versa. Usually it's the other way around. Usually, there's a bit of a hierarchy in terms of what's dependent on the other levels. But say something you learn from mathematics in one field, you can apply across multiple fields or different domains. Like it seems to, it's like a utility player. It seems to just have all this utility across pretty much every domain you can imagine. So yeah, it's something that's, so it's interesting to hear your perspective, because I think, I wasn't expecting that response.
What you're referring to is called universality in math. So why is there so much? why can you invent something in one field and then it generalizes across several? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it seems like we could say, why is the hammer so effective? Like, we invented the hammer to put in nails, but we can use it for several other domains. So to me, it sounds like a question that's just either as trivial or profound. Maybe it is an extremely profound question. Why is the hammer why is the knife so effective? It can cut someone, it can chop celery. To me, it's on the same level. And whether or not it's a profound question or one that's trivial depends on, to me, it's the same as, do you consider why do knives have so much of an application?
Sure.
So if you think that's an interesting question, which it may be, then you could think that the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics is also an interesting question. But this is my present deliberation. I oscillate. If you enjoyed that clip, then the full podcast is out right now. You can click around here. Enjoy. Subscribe to Theories of Everything to get notified of upcoming podcasts, as there are new full-length podcasts every week on the topics of mathematics, physics, consciousness, free will, and AI.